Yeah, that one. By some estimates, the most heard sound in human history. More than any song, more than any alarm, more than any national anthem. A ringtone from a phone company most people think no longer exists. They are wrong. This is the story of Nokia. Right now, while you are watching this video, data is traveling through Nokia equipment somewhere on Earth. How does a company go from controlling nearly half the mobile phone market to selling its phone business entirely and then quietly survive anyway? To understand that, we need to travel back more than 150 years, long before mobile phones existed. The story begins not in Silicon Valley, but in the forests of Finland, a place of rivers, timber, and long winters. In 1865, mining engineer Frederick Idestam founded a paper mill near the Tamerkoski Rapids. He was not building technology, he was making paper. A few years later, he opened another mill near the Nokian Virta River. The surrounding town was called Nokia. That simple geographic name would eventually become one of the most recognizable brands on the entire planet. For decades, Nokia was not a technology company. It made products that seem completely unrelated to mobile phones today. Rubber boots, tires, industrial cables, electricity products, Nokia became a collection of businesses searching for its true identity. By the 1960s, electronics started attracting attention. Around the world, technology was beginning to reshape entire industries. Nokia entered the field cautiously. At first, it looked like just another side project among many others. Few people could have predicted that this quiet experiment would eventually become the company's most important business. The transformation was not smooth. During the 1970s and 80s, Nokia faced difficult decisions about where to invest its future. Resources were limited. Competition was fierce. Every major strategic choice carried risk. One wrong move could have stalled everything. Then Nokia spotted something others underestimated: wireless communication, the ability to connect people without physical wires. Today, that sounds obvious. Back then, it looked uncertain, expensive, risky. Many believed traditional communication systems were enough. Nokia made a bet that would define its future. It began investing heavily in mobile communication technology. At the time, there was no guarantee consumers would carry phones everywhere they went. The idea sounded strange, but Nokia saw a future where communication would become personal, portable, and available almost anywhere on Earth. The bet would take years to pay off. While most consumers still viewed mobile phones as expensive curiosities, Nokia engineers were quietly building the foundations of a wireless future. Much of that future was shaped by one man. In 1992, a Finnish executive named Jorma Ollila was appointed chief executive of Nokia. Ollila made one of the boldest decisions in corporate history. He announced that Nokia would sell every business that was not telecommunications. Paper, rubber, cables, gone. It was a radical move. Nokia had spent over a century building those businesses. Many inside the company were skeptical. Some were alarmed. But Ollila understood something critical. In technology, focus is a weapon. A company that tries to be everything rarely becomes the best at anything. Across Europe, governments and telecom companies faced a growing problem. Different countries used different mobile systems. Phones often stopped working the moment they crossed a border. A solution emerged called GSM. It aimed to create a shared mobile standard across Europe. Nokia immediately recognized the opportunity hiding inside this technical challenge. Many companies participated in developing GSM, but Nokia committed itself completely. If the standard succeeded, it could unlock a market far larger than anyone imagined. For years, progress seemed slow. Engineers debated specifications. Infrastructure had to be built. Investors demanded results. Yet Nokia kept pushing forward. Then came the breakthrough. In 1991, the world's first GSM call was made in Finland. The future Nokia had envisioned was finally becoming real. The moment seemed small. One phone call, a few seconds of conversation, but it marked the beginning of a communications revolution that would reshape society. As GSM networks expanded, Nokia found itself perfectly positioned. Years of preparation suddenly mattered. The company was not chasing the trend, it helped create it. Demand exploded. Businesses wanted mobile phones. Consumers wanted mobile phones. Entire countries raced to build wireless networks as adoption accelerated faster than anyone had forecast. Nokia responded with relentless focus. Instead of spreading attention across unrelated businesses, it concentrated every resource on telecommunications. It was one of the most important strategic choices in the company's history. Nokia simplified its operations and committed itself fully to the mobile future. The gamble worked spectacularly. Throughout the 1990s, Nokia transformed from a diversified industrial company into one of the fastest-growing technology firms on Earth. Its phones became known for reliability, durable, intuitive, and easy to use. Consumers trusted them, often without considering alternative brands. Nokia also understood something many competitors missed. Technology alone was not enough. Products needed personality. They needed to feel approachable and human. Colorful faceplates, memorable designs, and recognizable sounds helped Nokia become more than a manufacturer. It became part of everyday culture. Then came Snake. The simple game became a global obsession. Millions of people spent hours guiding a tiny digital snake across tiny screens. By the end of the decade, Nokia was not merely succeeding, it was dominating. In many markets, buying a mobile phone meant buying a Nokia. Factories worked around the clock. Supply chains stretched across continents. Every year, millions more devices left production lines bound for new customers around the world. Investors loved the growth. Consumers loved the products. Competitors struggled to keep pace. Nokia appeared unstoppable, the undisputed king of mobile communication. In the year 2000, Nokia became one of Europe's most valuable companies. Its market cap briefly exceeded $250 billion. But hidden beneath the celebration was a dangerous assumption. Nokia believed its dominance would continue. History was preparing a very different lesson. At first, the threat did not look like a threat at all. Nokia was still selling hundreds of millions of phones and dominating markets across the globe. Inside the company, executives focused on refining existing products, better hardware, more features, more devices. The formula seemed proven. But technology was changing beneath the surface. Phones were becoming small computers. Software was becoming just as important as hardware. Some Nokia engineers saw the shift coming. They warned that Symbian, the company's mobile operating system, was becoming increasingly difficult to improve and adapt. Symbian had been built for a different era of phones. Adding modern features felt like renovating an ancient building. Every change risked collapsing something else. The warnings were not ignored completely. The problem was speed. Nokia had become enormous, and enormous organizations rarely move quickly. Teams debated strategy, departments competed for influence, projects overlapped, decisions slowed. Meanwhile, competitors were preparing something revolutionary. Then came January 2007. On a stage in California, a single product announcement would change the future of the entire industry. When Steve Jobs introduced the iPhone, many industry veterans initially dismissed it. Expensive, limited, missing features that existing phones already offered. From a traditional mobile phone perspective, those criticisms made sense. But the iPhone was not competing on old rules. It was creating new ones. The touchscreen became the center of the experience. Software became the product. Hardware became merely the platform that delivered it. 1 year later, another challenge arrived. Android entered the market and spread rapidly across dozens of manufacturers around the world. Suddenly, Nokia faced pressure from both directions. Apple controlled the premium experience. Android flooded every other corner of the market. In 2007, Nokia still controlled roughly half the global mobile phone market. Just a few years later, that dominance had nearly vanished. This was the cruel reality of technology. Winning for decades does not guarantee winning tomorrow. Success can become a trap if it blinds you to change. But there is a chapter of this story that most people never heard. Inside Nokia, a small team was secretly building something that could have changed everything. Nokia had partnered with Intel to develop MeeGo, a new mobile operating system built from the ground up. Unlike Symbian, it was designed for the touchscreen era from the very beginning. The device they built around MeeGo was called the Nokia N9. Released in 2011, it had a seamless curved design, a full touchscreen, and a fluid swipe-based interface unlike anything else on the market. Reviewers were stunned. Tech publications called the N9 one of the most beautifully designed phones they had ever held. The interface was praised as genuinely innovative. Here was proof that Nokia could compete in the new era. The N9 was not a desperate imitation of the iPhone. It was something genuinely original. But then came the decision that would haunt Nokia for years. Leadership announced that MeeGo was being abandoned. The N9 would be the first and last of its kind. The N9 was released in limited markets with almost no marketing support. Nokia barely promoted it. Many consumers never even knew it existed. Many engineers who worked on the N9 described the experience as watching their life's work deliberately pushed off a cliff. The frustration inside Nokia was profound. Why was MeeGo killed just as it was proving itself? The answer lies in a controversial hire that had taken place earlier that same year. In 2010, Nokia appointed a new chief executive. His name was Stephen Elop. He was Canadian, he came from Microsoft, and his appointment immediately raised eyebrows. Hiring a former Microsoft executive to lead Nokia struck many as a bold gamble. Some called it visionary. Others called it something far more troubling, a Trojan horse, they said. Investors grew nervous. Consumers began switching brands. Developers focused on competing ecosystems. Every departure made recovery even more difficult. Inside Nokia, morale suffered. Employees understood the stakes. The company that once defined mobile communication was struggling to keep up with rivals half its age. Then came one of the most famous internal memos in corporate history. Elop wrote that Nokia was standing on a burning platform. The company needed to jump before the fire consumed everything. The memo acknowledged what many inside Nokia already felt. Symbian was losing ground, Android was surging, Apple was expanding. Staying still was no longer a strategy. The search for a solution led Nokia toward an unexpected partnership. One of the biggest names in software was about to enter the story. The decision would become one of the most debated moves in Nokia's history. The company chose Microsoft and its Windows Phone operating system as the foundation for its future. The logic seemed reasonable. Apple controlled its own ecosystem, Google controlled Android. Nokia hoped Microsoft could become a powerful third platform with room for all. Nokia would abandon MeeGo and Symbian entirely. All future smartphones would run Windows Phone. This was the moment MeeGo and the N9 were sentenced to death. Some Lumia phones received genuine praise. Their cameras impressed reviewers. Their colorful designs stood out from increasingly similar competitors. But the smartphone war was no longer about devices alone. It was about applications, developers, services, and ecosystems. On that battlefield, Windows Phone was outnumbered from the start. Consumers wanted access to the largest app stores. Developers wanted the largest audiences. The cycle reinforced itself and left almost no room for a third platform to grow. Despite enormous effort, market share continued shrinking. Every quarter brought more pressure. Every report reminded investors how quickly fortunes can collapse. Then came the moment many people remember as Nokia's death. In 2013, Microsoft agreed to purchase Nokia's entire phone business for around $7 billion. For millions of consumers, that announcement felt like the end of an era. The company that defined mobile phones appeared finally and completely defeated. Newspapers wrote about Nokia's collapse. Analysts dissected every mistake. Business schools gained a powerful case study about disruption, complacency, and the dangers of platform dependence. But something important was missing from that story. Nokia had sold its phone division. It had not sold the entire company. While the world focused on smartphones, Nokia still owned vast patent portfolios, telecommunications infrastructure businesses, and a mapping division it would later sell to a German automotive consortium for billions. Instead of disappearing, Nokia began yet another reinvention. It shifted attention toward the invisible systems that make modern communication possible. In 2015, Nokia acquired Alcatel-Lucent, one of the world's leading telecommunications equipment companies. The deal added capabilities that positioned Nokia as a global infrastructure giant. Cell towers, network hardware, internet backbone equipment. The technologies consumers rarely think about, yet depend on completely every single day. Today, Nokia competes in a very different arena. Its rivals are no longer phone makers. They are infrastructure giants like Ericsson and Huawei. As countries build out fifth-generation networks, Nokia is supplying equipment and technology to carriers and governments across the globe. The company still faces challenges. Competition remains fierce. Technology evolves rapidly. Success is never guaranteed, no matter how powerful a company once was. And that may be the deepest lesson in Nokia's story. Dominance can disappear overnight. Reinvention is often harder than achieving success in the first place. Nokia made real mistakes. Symbian stayed too long. MeeGo came too late. The Microsoft bet failed. But many of those decisions looked reasonable at the time they were made. Looking back, many of Nokia's decisions seem obvious. But history rarely feels obvious while it is happening. Uncertainty hides every outcome. Things often look like mistakes before they look inevitable. The line between a bold strategic pivot and a catastrophic blunder is often only visible in hindsight. Remember that data traveling through Nokia equipment while you watched this video? It is there because a paper mill in Finland once decided to bet everything on wireless communication. And then, when that bet was lost, decided to bet again. Nokia's story is not a story of failure. It is a story of transformation, and it is not over yet. So what do you think? Was Nokia's downfall unavoidable, or could the N9 and MeeGo have changed history if they had been given the chance? Let us know below.